Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I want to talk today about manufacturing, especially electronics manufacturing, because I'm directly involved in this, and tell you my view about manufacturing. Everybody talks about manufacturing, and we see in the past week there were a lot of movements on this front of making things great again. I'm not going to discuss about the political issues here or about. I'm just going to tell you my view about manufacturing, the pros and cons of manufacturing, and how do I see manufacturing. Hopefully that reflects the reality because I'm directly involved in this. I've been doing this for a while. I created a small factory. I wouldn't call it factory. It's more between workshop and factory from scratch. So I've been through all the stages of putting together a manufacturing business. Okay, so why I think people, they ignore reality. Most of the people which they talk about manufacturing, they've seen it as a very successful activity. And I can understand why, because most of the Western company, they kind of outsource manufacturing over time. It didn't happen all immediately. So it was a long process. And now they see success on the other side. When I say on the other side, the people which they took over the manufacturing, and they are somehow nostalgic and they have regrets. Now, you can't take business decision based on nostalgia, because this is you're going to lose money. Okay, so now why do I think this is true? First of all, let's say you want to start the manufacturing business, right? So what do you need? So you need, first of all, you need to have customers, right? So you need to make sure that when you're going to manufacture goods, whatever those goods are, you're going to have customers, or you're going to have contracts coming in order to keep your business running. So this is probably the most important thing. It doesn't matter how much money you have and how much skills. If you don't have customers, it's dead in the water. Now let's assume you have customers. Now, if you want to build your customer base, you need to have people which they are going to trust you. If you don't have customers, or you want new customers. So you need to build some trust. This is very, very difficult when you start a business, to build the trust, because it takes time. Okay, now, it's a very large capital expenditure. Why I'm saying this? A factory is not something that you can put in a corner of your office. So you need a building. You need a long-term lease. Why you need a long-term lease? You're going to put some machinery there. You're going to alter maybe the building that you're going to set up your factory. So you need to bring air, you need to bring electricity, cables, new setups, evacuation, air flow, all that. Now, you need to insulate that building, especially in the electronic industry. So that is not going to be a small job. So the moment you decide to do this, you need to be committed. It's not like software engineering where you buy a second-hand laptop and 6 months down the road you quit that idea and you go and you do something else. No. When you are going to take the street of manufacturing, this is a very long journey. It's not, you can't change your mind after 6 months. So you need to make sure you are committed, and this is a long run business. It's not short term. Okay, so let's assume you put all the finance together and you are going to rent a space or buy a space, and you start buying machineries and all that. Now, how you finance this? Well, there are two parts here. You go and you convince some investors to invest in your venture. Good luck with that, and I'll come back to this point. Or you grow organically. You start with a small shop with your own savings and maybe some money from friends or family or whatever, and you grow organically. This is going to take a lot of time. So this is the slow path, but it's a little bit more secure. Now, going with the investor path, you go there and it's difficult to find investors which they want to invest in manufacturing. Why? Because there are no good examples of good manufacturing in the West. They are not. You can't say, look, we are going to do what that company does. There is no such thing. You have to point them somewhere else in a different country, which different country they run under a different regime with different laws and different things. So you don't have a good example to show to the investors. Now, let's say you have a concrete business plan. Well, how you are going to make a concrete business plan when your investors, they don't see any other competitors next to you? Now, that might be a good thing. Oh, you have no competitors, but you need to show them some sort of business plan. This is going to, how much is going to cost me? How much is going to cost me the labor force? How much I'm going to pay interest for this money? I'm going to do this and that, right? And when you add all together, you're going to have very low margins. And investors, they're not interested in the low margin business. That's it. End of story. They can invest in some, housing market or some other, I don't know, AI, crypto, whatever. It's the latest fashion because you see those cycles coming and going. Solar panels, okay. Then LEDs, IoT, they all come and go, right? So they are more keen to invest in those, high risk, high margins or high return activities than your factory. A factory is something dull for investors. It's something like, they have those margins which are not great. It's a lot of risk. What if the customer goes away? It's always like that. So if you look in the market where manufacturing is still successful, is usually attached vertically on a product company. A good example is car manufacturing. So Tesla, let's talk about Tesla. So Tesla, they designed this beautiful car with all the features and they manufacture that car. This is where manufacturing makes sense. But as a contract manufacturing, that's a different animal, a totally different animal. So if you are thinking to start a contract manufacturing business, be careful because it's not, you can't just take Tesla's manufacturing, side of the business and transplant it somewhere else and hope you are going to do the same thing. No, it's not going to happen. I mean, look at those high margin business in electronics. Look at Apple, right? Apple, historically speaking, they were making their own computers. They were building their own computers. They were, they kind of perfected that up to a point, right? And then they discovered that, the value in what we do is actually in engineering, is not in manufacturing, and they outsourced the manufacturing. Why do you think that happened? That was a natural move. It was a business decision because they didn't see value in manufacturing. They saw value in the engineering side. So investors, they're thinking exactly in the same way. Oh yeah, we like to invest in Apple, in that beefy, side of Apple. Manufacturing, let it go somewhere else. So that's the thinking of the investors. So coming back to you want to set up a business, you will have a very hard time to explain to an investors that you're going to build a factory and you're going to take contracts from here and there and you're going to, yes, probably if you show them, look, I have those contracts from defense company, where defense company, you can apply some decent margins on their product, or some medical, I don't know, some high margin business. If you can show them a contract like this, maybe, but you are not going to, as a small shop, nobody is going to sign with you such contract. So be careful with that. Now, another myth about manufacturing. Oh, we are going to have all those people working in manufacturing and they're going to live a good life and they're going to buy this and that and they're going to pay for it. No, manufacturing jobs are not well paid. I know there is a crowd which is going to say, oh yeah, automation. Yes, you will have some automation, but you still need operator. You still need a guy for the forklift. You still need a guy on the warehouse. You still need all those. Now, when you automate a lot, you need to have technicians to keep this automation going. So there are not many jobs there. There are not many engineers. You're going to buy those robots from large robotic companies, which they're going to send their own engineers when there is a problem. You're going to have some technicians to keep things running, but manufacturing, it's not like it used to be. So most of the people, when they talk about manufacturing, they're thinking 30 years ago, and they think automotive and all the, you see those lines and all those people, one is putting a wheel, one is putting a screw there. That's not the case anymore. All those people, they're gone. There are not much personnel, labor around those lines. It's the same in electronic manufacturing. So you have a line, and you have 2 people, maybe 3 people on that line, which they keep the line running. And you can have like a bunch of lines in parallel in one factory. But that's pretty much it. And you have some other guys which they debug or they inspect, but they're not large. They're not large employers. Now, salaries are not that great. And if you don't believe me, ask somebody which works in a technician salary on a SMT line doesn't have a very big salary. Yeah, there is a production engineer, but that's a production engineer over 10 lines, which is setting up all the production and everything, and then there are the purchasing and all the people in the offices. But on the actual line, on the floor, those people which are not, they don't need to have a degree in something. They are technicians and they can be qualified over there by working. You know, they can learn as they work. There are not many, and the salaries are not great. You can ask in the industry if you don't believe me. Okay, so when people they talk about manufacturing, they think 30 years ago manufacturing. Why? Because they didn't have visibility into today's manufacturing. Today's manufacturing is tricky business. The margins are not great. They don't employ a lot of people. It's not as easy as people think. Now, I don't want to discourage people. I would love, young people to get out there and set up manufacturing businesses or factories and start from scratch like I started when I started. That's fine. I would love to do that. But what I'm saying here, be careful, is not that great as people they would like you to think. Today's realities are different. And if you ignore reality, you will get burned. You need to make your homework before you take such a big decision. Because this is big decision. This is not something you can turn around and change your mind. Okay, so those are my views about manufacturing. Now, why some countries are successful at manufacturing? It's a very complex topic. I'm thinking to make a video about that, but not in this one. This one is just to tell you my view about manufacturing. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and I hope what I just said makes sense. See you in the next one.